Joining us right now to talk a little bit more about this and the expectations is Betsy Duke, former Fed governor. She joins us right now. Betsy, great to have you here on the program. Look, I know no one's expecting a change in rates, but we also get to this idea about the debate that has to go on behind closed doors, given the fluctuations that we continue to see with regards to the situation in Iran and its impact on energy prices, and more importantly, the feed through into more impactful inflation numbers that the Fed will have to parse.
Yeah, so I don't expect there to be any change. But honestly, I think there's a very good case to be made for making a change. If you look at 5 years, more than 5 years now, the Fed's missed its target. The labor market seems to be stable in any case. The growth in the economy is solid. There's no indication that I can see. It'd be hard to make the argument that the current level of interest rates is restrictive. So, they came out so strongly saying we are going to get inflation under control. If they say that and don't do anything and don't say anything more, that's kind of hard to deal with. So
Yeah.
I think a good case can be made for a quarter-point hike.
A hike. OK, that'd be interesting. But, well, it's actually to that point. We were talking a lot over the last few days about the strength of the economy and how if there was any time to sort of maybe make a little bit more of a fight against inflation, now would be it. Do you agree?
I think it would be. I think if I were in the room, I would certainly be arguing for it. I don't think I would be at the point where I felt so strongly that I would dissent, but I think you may very well see dissents after this meeting.
What would restrictive policy look like to you?
Well, I think that the neutral rate is probably somewhere around 4. That's my guess. And I think with deglobalization, I think globalization made inflation really easy to keep under control, and the great moderation. I think deglobalization is going to tend to make inflation harder to keep under control.
How do you kind of parse through the one-time shocks then of oil, of geopolitics, of volatility in the Middle East? How does that kind of factor into how you think about where neutral really is?
So everything in economics says you look through one-time shocks, but there have been so many one-time shocks. It's been one-time shock after one-time shock. There was supply shock from the COVID reopening. There were tariffs. There was the war. Now there's more tariffs. Now there's more trouble in the Middle East going on. And there comes a point where each of these one-time shocks has some lingering effect, and they pile on top of each other, on top of each other. And so, people begin to expect inflation to continue at its current level.
Just real quickly, Betsy, only about a minute left, but with regards to Kevin Warsh and the communication that he's going to have to give, because at the end of the day, no matter what decision they make on Wednesday, the real challenge is going to be trying to explain that to investors at 2:30 p.m.
I think that's true. I mean, you can avoid giving forward guidance, but at some point you have to explain the decision that you just made. That's not forward guidance, that's a decision. And so it's going to be interesting to hear, and really interesting to see the minutes from this meeting to see how contentious it actually was.